To you all to our last council meeting of our term, an extraordinary meeting of the Hawke's Bay Regional Council. To start, Councillor Harding, would you like to lead us in karakia?
I was looking at Mike over there. Surely. Me karakia tātou o tū tawa. Tū tawa mai runga,
tū tawa mai raro, tū tawa mai roto, tū tawa mai waho. Kia tau ai te mauri tū, te mauri ora, ki te katoa, haungi, hui tai kie. Thank you, Councillor Harding. Given this is going to be one of your, the last council meeting for you, unless you decide to rerun the next term.
It's not too late.
The term after. A warm welcome to all those online. Kia ora, Councillor Sears. Thank you for joining us. And we will have Councillor Williams join us soon online. And we have Councillor Hokianga and Lambert running late. So they'll join as soon as they can. I have apologies from Councillor Curtin, who could not make today, sends his apologies. And so I'm happy to move that. Can I please have a seconder? Councillor Foley. All those who agree say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. I'd like to bring forth a notice. We have been, as a council and councils across the country, regional councils have had a letter from ministers and Minister Bishop involving asking regional councils to streamline resource consent processes as they work through RMA reform. So I've asked Nick and Katrina, and Katrina, can I invite you up the front, please, to be able to maybe just provide a brief on what that means for the regional council, and if councillors have any further questions, if you'll be willing to answer those. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I might just start that one off. So all regional councils received a letter from Ministers Bishop, Macleay and Simmons, and really it was a notice of the fact that the Resource Management Act is getting replaced by new legislation, and they asked councils to be as practical and pragmatic as they can in that transitional period. And I think that's the view we look to take through resource consenting processes as much as we can anyway. But I'll just get Katrina to talk to that. We continue to operate within the law, but we'll be as practical as we can be.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. Fundamentally, we need to act within the law. That includes the current piece of legislation that we have, the Resource Management Act, and the rules that are contained within our planning documents. Having said that, where we know that rules are likely to change as a result of the incoming legislation, we are, of course, looking to that and working with ministry officials as much as we can, taking a pragmatic approach. Probably you'll see some consents being placed on hold as they come up for renewals while we wait for the incoming legislation in the next 2 months.
Thank you. Katrina, are there any questions for Katrina? No, crystal clear, thank you. Thank you for that, Bridget. We move on to item 2, conflicts of interest declarations. Are there any conflicts? Be notified. There are none. Thank you. Confirmation of minutes from our last council meeting held on the 24th of September.
I just raised just a trivial thing, but on the one hand, at paragraph 5, it mentions parting comments from Councillor Foley and myself as being on the agenda. Then at the end, it notes that there were no minor items for discussion, so we didn't actually get to that. So if we just tuned up the minutes to record that it didn't happen.
Okay, thank you. Any further corrections?
Chair, just before you move on, when there's been changes to, I was looking at the procurement stuff and there was changes to be made. Does that recycle back around so we can see the completed document policy?
Document? Ian?
Happy to circulate it
Thank you.
to councillors. I think we're probably going to bring back to full meeting.
No.
And send it around.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if there are no further corrections, are you happy to move that, councillor Rodley?
Very happy to move that.
Councillor Harding, would you like
Sure.
to second? All those who agree say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried, thank you. Before we get into the decision items, I'd like to add a final item to today's agenda, number 8, which is our leaving speeches. Thank you.
And also there is no space for items not on the agenda,
Yeah, minor items,
minor
yeah.
items. So I've got one of those.
Would you like to raise a minor item?
Yes, please.
Fantastic. What is your minor item?
Kindness.
Kindness. Yep.
Is that from the voters?
No, Mike.
All right.
It's not from your councillor either.
Got 2 last items then. Thank you. Kia ora, Councillor Hokianga. Kia ora.
Apologies, Chair.
All right, we move into our decision items. Number 4, so the Ernst & Young audit close report on the year ending June 2025. So I'll hand it over to you, Nick.
Thank you, Chair. Councillors, it's always an important milestone in the year of the life of any council that you receive and consider the annual report. And as part of that process, we go through an extensive audit carried out by EY in this case. And I think we've got a pleasing result from that audit, so I look forward to them providing that information to you. So the items really 4 and 5 are in 2 parts. There's the report from EY and then the annual report for your consideration and adoption. And I will hand over to the CFO.
Kia ora, councillors. Thank you, Nick. Yes, as Nick said, sort of the highlight of the financial year for us accountants, and here presenting the annual report and getting it audited and being able to report on the position of the council for the year. The closed report that EY have presented here today shows a really good audit. I think there's been a really good audit between the teams, both our team and the EY team, and they've worked really well together. And it is looking like an unqualified audit opinion for this year into there. I will note that EY have got a few preliminary findings at the back of that report. Those will be expanded on in the management letter that comes out after the audit and the annual report has been published. And so that will come to the next council in a Finance, Risk and Audit Committee type of setting there. But what I'd do is like to hand over to Dave and Charlie from EY to summarise their report and be available to answer any questions.
Maureen, I might just make a couple of brief comments on our report, and then very happy to take questions from councillors. Starting on page 4 of our report, which is the executive summary. Firstly, similar to Chris's comments, just wanted to extend a thank you to the management team for all of their support over the past month. Wanted to acknowledge that we'd been working to reasonably compressed timeframes for this audit. So last year the annual report and the audit were completed at the end of October. This year, because of the elections, we were all communally keen to get that completed earlier in August, which we have effectively achieved, but they have been pretty tight timeframes that everyone has been working to, and we've really appreciated the support we've had from management to be able to work to those timelines. Also wanted to make a comment on the top left of page 4, where it's got the status of the audit, and it mentions a number of open items that are listed in Appendix B of our report. To provide an update on those items that were open at the point that this report was issued, those are now largely complete. So we do have a list of residual matters that we're working through with management, but those primarily relate to the presentation of the annual report document itself and just making sure that that's tidied up and refined as it needs to be. So those are reasonably minor in nature. I might just make comments on two other elements of our report. One is around the work we complete for infrastructure assets and property, plant and equipment, which is on page 5 of our report. On that page, we run through a number of procedures that we complete in that space, but just wanted to highlight from our perspective the key or the critical procedures. The first is around our additions testing and effectively checking we are satisfied that those items that have been capitalised are in fact capital in nature, and note for the current year that also included some of the initial NIWI spend, which was effectively new. For assets that are valued as at 30 June 2025, we checked the inputs to those valuations. So, for example, that would have been land and buildings for the current year. And for asset classes that weren't revalued, and an example of that is the infrastructure assets, we worked through a process of checking with management that we were all communally satisfied that the value that remains on the books still approximates fair value, even though that asset class hasn't been revalued as at 30 June 2025. The other page I'd make a comment on is just around the grants work we complete, and that's on page 7 of our report. Acknowledging that there's obviously much less activity in this space this year, given most of the recovery grants and associated work was all activity that occurred in previous periods, but also acknowledge that there are some ongoing grants that council receives every year, plus a bit of a stub from some of the recovery piece. And our work in that space effectively remained unchanged in terms of making sure we understood the context of the relevant contracts and that revenue was recognised as and when council was entitled to that revenue. The only other point that I would make that's outside of those key areas of focus is the point that Chris briefly touched on. It's page 14 of our report, which goes to our assessment of the control environment. Effectively, as a result, or it's a byproduct of completing our audit of the annual report, we do have some observations around council's processes and controls. We're in the process of validating those with council staff, and the other thing that we also do for those is we get the relevant business owner within council to provide a response, and the ordinary process for those is we will issue a report to council at the next Audit and Risk Committee meeting that will cover both our observation and then a response from the relevant council owner in respect of our observation. But I think from our perspective, for the purposes of this session, just wanted to give a bit of an initial view into what those points are shaping up like. That's all from me, but very happy to answer any questions that councillors have.
Thank you both. Councillors, questions? Councillor Harding.
Kia ora, Chair. Look, thanks for that overview. I think you mentioned the revaluation, or actually the non-revaluation of the flood assets. And so I was just looking at page 6 of the report and the movements for infrastructure assets. And so 436 million opening, some minor movements in revaluations and depreciation, and closing almost the same, $20 million in additions. So I was trying to interpret that in the context of all the work that's going on, and landed on two things. One is that it appears obvious from that there has been no adjustment to the value of our stock banks and pump systems, so that the backbone of our flood protection systems for the two major schemes. So I think that's, my understanding is correct. But additions and work in progress, $20 million, that seems quite light. Can you explain what's in and what's out of that, please? Because that seems to be quite a lot lower than what we've actually been spending on our improvement programs.
I can take that. For the NIWI program, that is what was spent. There was about another $5 million that was expensed through the IRG program for the initial sort of assessments of the different options and things like that. Most of the work that has been going on has been in getting the PDPs, the development plans set up, approved by government, consultation with the communities and everything, and then starting into the tendering processes and setting up for the major construction work that will begin over the summer period into there. So, yeah, overall to date on the NIWI program, we've only spent about $26 million in total.
Okay, thanks, Chris. And just to make abundantly clear, that includes all the staffing costs, everything. It's not just the capital work itself, but that everything that we do is capitalised and ends up on the balance sheet for those projects.
Everything that can be capitalised, there are some costs from an accounting point of view that can't be capitalised into a final project, like assessing each of the different options that you've got for a scheme or that. But everything that we can capitalise as part of the final delivery of a new stock bank will be capitalised.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Harding, any further questions? Councillor Roadley, kia ora.
Thank you, Chair, through you. Chris, one for you. Could you just help me understand, well, actually, it's the piece on the auditors thing, but I think it's you that will help me understand. On page 7, the detail around the grants received for the silt and debris and the remaining balances, which I see are 120 for the TLAs and 200 for commercial. Are those, they're listed as they're listed as liabilities. Are they actually spent, or why are they sitting as liabilities on our books?
So they are the final remnants of the grants that we received, so the cash that we received. They are the unspent piece that is committed to the final costs of wrapping up those schemes.
So they will be spent.
They will be spent on the actual work related to the schemes. If anything is not spent of that, it will be returned to the Crown.
And that's via their channels, it'll be returned, or will it come back to us and then we return it? What's that little pathway?
I know this is stuff sitting with us and would be returned by us to DIA.
Okay. But we are expecting those balances to be close to zero?
Yeah. We've only retained the amount that we expect to still be spending.
Okay. Oh, that's what those figures represent?
Yes.
Oh, lovely. Great, thank you. Great work there.
Councillor Harding.
Chair. Look, just to follow up from Councillor Roadley's question. So for the silt and debris fund, page 7 records this $51 million went to commercial entities. As I recall, there was a deadline for those commercial entities to spend the money and provide evidence if required and there was quite a healthy audit process that went with those to make sure that the money was being spent appropriately. Councils was at risk in having to refund to DIA effectively if the money was misspent. So there was a process potentially of recoveries. I think before Susie left, she may have reported that process audit was complete. I'm just wondering whether we've had a final okay from DIA that that's all done and dusted and there's no contingent liabilities there.
No. I'm not sure specifically if we've had a final okay from DIA. I will take that away and follow that up. But I am not aware of any requirements to repay anything more from those audits or anything at this point in time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. If you can just please email a note to confirm that. Thank you.
Good question.
Kia ora, Councillor Williams, glad to have you with us from the airport. And Councillor Lambert, welcome. Hi, if there are no further questions, can I please have a mover and a seconder to receive and approve the report? Councillor Van Beek, is it seconder? Councillor Hokianga, would you like to speak, Councillor?
Now, as Councillor Curtin always said, just briefly, and then he takes 5 minutes, but I won't take 5 minutes. Again, thank you very much for a thorough job done. And as you can see, there's still quite a bit of overhang from Cyclone Gabriel in this report. And once again, thank you very much for the work that has been done on behalf of the community. Thank you.
Councillor Hokianga?
Nothing from me.
Any further speakers? There are none. All those who agree say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation and your overview. Well done. Okay, we move on team to the annual report adoption. So can I please welcome up those who are going to present that? Oh, okay, Chris, hand it back over.
Okay. So following on from the EY presentation on their review of the audit, this item is to adopt the annual report for 2024-25, the report of the Regional Council against the first year of our 3-year plan, 2024 to 2027. As David mentioned earlier, it is presented 3 weeks earlier than the statutory deadline because of the local elections on the 11th of October. For the non-financial section, 41 of the 55 performance measures, hopefully 42 with the unqualified audit opinion, have been achieved. The ones that have not been achieved are generally a result of a focus on the flood resilience program and holding 20 vacancies as part of our reduction in costs over the last couple of years. Financial performance has again heavily been impacted by the cyclone, with unbudgeted income and spend on the extension of the sediment and debris program, firming up on the timing of funding, the capital funding from the government for the Niue flood resilience program, and our continued efforts to recover as much as possible from insurers and other parties to lessen the financial impact of the cyclone on the Hawke's Bay ratepayers. This does result in an operating surplus, but this is driven from funding received for expenditure that we've already incurred in previous years or are incurring for capital items in there. The major change in the balance sheet that you'll notice in there is an increase in the value of our investment in CCO, which is driven from an increase in the value of the Napier Port Holdings Limited share price at the end of the year, which resulted in about an $81 million surplus. Increase in value for the year. So you've got I'll take the rest of the report as read and the annual report as read, and welcome any questions.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you to the team on putting this report together. It really does illustrate where our key focus areas are, our priority areas are. So it's very well articulated. Thank you. Questions? Councillor McIntosh.
I think I say this every year, but anyway, I'll say it again. They're massive undertakings to put something like this together, and I think it does an extraordinarily thorough job of the council's business. And if you want to drill down into the nitty-gritty of anything, it's there for you. So I want to acknowledge the work that goes into putting together the annual report. It's huge, and the quality of the document that's been produced. So that was the main point I wanted to make. Chair, like several of us, I've got some probably incidental things to say, and actually, insofar as so as a document, do you want us to feed those? Should we just feed those through to you separately? They're small things which you may or may not want to take on board.
Yep.
Yep. If there's any small items, that's easiest to feed them back through me or governance team, and we can incorporate them. Obviously, this report is being approved with the proviso of any minor adjustments for editing purposes into there. So we, as long as they are just of that minor purpose of editing some stuff or changing some words around or stuff like that, we should be fine to make those.
Okay, and the deadline, so you need those soon, don't you, if we're going to get those to you?
Yes, yeah.
Is today possible, councillor McIntosh?
Sorry?
Is today possible to get those edits?
Yes?
Yes, fantastic, thank you, please do that. Are there any further questions?
Yeah, I've got a
Councillor
question.
Van Dyke.
So we spent enormous amount of funds between HBRC, HDC and central government on mixed waste, but also removing silt. Silt in itself actually has got a value. So those places where that silt went, who actually is the owner of that silt, and is there a value in it that we actually can show?
I know through the sediment and debris program, there was quite a bit of sales of silt that went out to various places where it was used for fill or things like that. In terms of where it has sat on land owners, I don't think that there has been an income resulting from that. But then again, we've utilised their land for doing that, so it's been more of a quid pro quo situation in those areas.
So there is no stockpile of silt that actually has got a capital value?
Not that I am aware of.
Not that I'm aware of, but I can follow up with Darren
great.
Clerk.
Yes, please.
For the locations that were used for the sorting and so on, there was a lease agreement that we return the land essentially back to a state as it was before. So that's part of the process, but I will check with Mr. de Klerk.
Thank you, and
Okay, that'd be
just email us all as well. Thank you, perfect. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Rodley?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chris and the team. Absolutely acknowledging this is a huge piece of work to pull together, and thank you for the way it's laid out. I appreciate the way it starts with lots of pictures and the diagrams with simple figures on literally a 2-page. We can have a good summary. So yes, I do appreciate that. I did have a bit of difficulty relating the pictures with the simple figures to the detail. One that struck me was I'm referring to my favourite part, which is, sorry, quickly just flicking to it. It's page 10 and 11 where you've got, for those online, it's a double page with illustration and a quick summary of, handful of words. And so it says on there, one of the key outcomes is restoring and protecting our biodiversity with 29.9 kilometres of new fencing to protect fragile ecosystem sites and 493 hectares of priority ecosystem sites protected. Fantastic, great work. But when I read on page 24, that it's actually way more than that, but I guess that's because the little box is referring to just those sites of significance rather than the whole quantum of fencing of 187 kilometres, which seemed far more in line with what I would have expected to see. Is that
Yes,
Um,
that is the
yes.
difference between them.
Yes.
The 29 is around the fragile ecosystem areas.
Yes. So it possibly undersells the huge amount of work that's been, and land that's been protected across our region. And so, yes, I do encourage people to not just go straight to the pictures like I do, but actually dig deeper into the text and put them in there. Their due diligence around each piece. And that's more information for the reader. The one thing that did strike me was that we fantastically have provided a bathroom block at one of our regional parks. Is that a usual thing that we would be doing?
Through you, Chair, I think that refers to the Waitangi
Yes, it does.
Park. And I think, where regional parks have struggled with people using them as bathrooms otherwise, we've looked to provide those facilities. And that was certainly an issue at Waitangi Park. So I think there may have been some additional funding to help.
It looks like some
Yeah.
funding from MB.
Yes.
And so that would be usual that we would provide those facilities
Yes.
as part of, it doesn't come under the District Council. Fantastic, thank you very much for that. And on a completely different note, I do notice the reducing trend in the Lagoimas, the information requests. And I guess we've come through such a turbulent time, you would expect to see large numbers of community wanting information around what happens behind the scenes. And whilst I think that process is incredibly important to our democracy, I think there's a balance and a fine line between providing that information in a timely manner, which obviously is the 20 days, and crippling the work that those staff are trying to do in progressing the forward-moving mahi that they do. So quite nice to see that tracking slowly downwards. And I guess as we contract our spending and contract our staff with our 20 vacancies still being held, the community might need to be very mindful around those requests for information and the time that they take and the cost that they have to the budget to answer those, and that they are serving a really good purpose. The request is serving a good purpose and is needing to be done.
Thank you, Councillor
Thank
Bradley.
you, Chris.
Perfect. Councillor Sears, kia ora.
Kia ora, Morena, through you, Chair. I mean, there's a lot to say over the report. I think Councillor Rodley said it's a good breakdown of an enormous amount of work across an organisation that I still get asked often by constituents, what does regional council actually do? So this is a great document to be able to articulate the enormous breadth of work. I know last year one of the comments was particularly around monitoring of consents, particularly high-risk ones. So just to pick up the one point I thought was really significant for us, particularly as that's been a question that's come up around this election time. Our regional council's really delivering on one of these core responsibilities of consent monitoring, and I want to congratulate that team on that movement from 66% of high risk sites being consents being monitored up to 99.9% in this last financial year. I know it's come up as a red as the others only made the 80%, but just noting that that was only 52% last year. So it was something that we commented on last year and felt was really significant. And I think that change is something really worth acknowledging. So thank you to that team. Kia ora.
Kia ora, thank you, Councillor Sears. No further questions.
Another question.
Councillor Van Bay.
This is actually on page 36. Can you please help me out, someone? And this is under the level of emissions related to HBRC's own corporate carbon footprint. Because there seems to be quite a jump in scope 3, what is the difference between scope 1 and 2 and scope 3?
Okay, I do sort of know this. I'm not an expert in it. But scope 1 is our direct emissions of the activities that we do, and scope 2 is of the suppliers, what they do in bringing stuff into us. Scope 3 emissions are the emissions that our suppliers actually incur, and our share of those that relate to the products that we have purchased from them. It's quite a difficult concept to get your head around, and it's quite difficult to measure as well. Mm-hmm. And you will note that in our audit reports for the previous 3 years, we have had an emphasis of matter just saying the technical difficulty in actually reporting on scope 3 emissions. But it is the way that all reporting should be heading towards.
Okay. And subsequent question. So it looks like we are going to set that the year just gone is going to be our benchmark year going forward. Yes. So with the obviously you expect an increase or a decrease in years to come.
So we would be trying to look for a decrease in years to come by sourcing stuff from those suppliers that are actually having their own programs for reducing emissions. So therefore, the scope 3 emissions that would be attached to their product would start to decrease that way.
Okay, thank you.
Nick, would you like to add anything?
Just to add to that, I think one of the challenges we'll see in that scope 3 over the next few years will be the level of construction going on under NIWI will mean that because we're massively growing our capital construction base, we will see that number go up.
Not many electric excavators, are there?
No.
Councillor Harding.
Chair, okay, just to add to that conversation, I just note on page 14 of the report, actually, it provides an explanation of the changes in scope 3. So it's not, so the graph sort of slightly, it looks like there's a lot more growth than there actually is, but if people want to understand what was in and out versus previous years, they can read the note on page 14.
Thank you. Perfect. Okay, could you, Chris, outline the next steps, given that any minor additions will be emailed to you today?
Yeah, so if councillors have any further additions or changes or comments in that, do please email them through to us today and we will put them through. We will, as David and Charlie mentioned earlier, we're just going through with auditors and finalising, just making sure that everything ticks backwards and forwards between the notes and the accounts and between the words and everything like that. Make sure that both of us are happy. There will be a few minor editing changes that will go through there, which we will approve in-house through the Chief Executive and then look to publish before the end of the month, where the due date for publishing for accounts is 31st of October, and then the summary financial statement will be audited by EY as well and published on the approval of the Chief Executive.
Well done. Okay. Well, team, if we are happy to move the recommendations 1 and 2 to adopt the annual report, could I please have a mover, Councillor Harding, and a seconder, Councillor Van Beek? Would you like to speak, Councillor Harding?
Oh, look, only very briefly to reiterate the comments that have been made about the immense amount of work that goes into this. Also, the progress that's been made, recovering from the effects on our levels of service and on just the general tidiness of the business post-cyclone. And Chris, I mean, you can be proud of the work that your team have done and yourself in achieving essentially a clean audit. And no adjustments. I thought it was remarkable. 0 adjustments.
Very, very proud of the team and of the governance team and that help us out there.
Well done, Councillor Van Beek. Any further speakers? There are none. All those who agree say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Well done, team. Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Team, we now move into the public excluded items under the subject strategic review. If there are no questions as to why we're moving into public excluded, can I please have a mover? Yep, Councillor McIntosh, second, Councillor Van Beek. All those who agree say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Thank you.